people. So earlier this year, I picked up a new Glock. And when I opened the box for this, I found myself to be very disappointed about what wasn't in here, because Glock has made some changes recently that you may or may not know about. So the first thing that was missing from the Glock 47 box was a metal optic cover plate. Traditionally on Glock MOS pistols, the cover plate that you would put onto the slide, if you weren't running a red dot, was made of metal. And when you looked at the top of the slide, you didn't see a big difference in the sheen or the finish of the slide between the optic plate and the slide. Now, plastic cover plates are not a big deal, because if you're gonna slap a red dot on it, you're just gonna throw it in a baggie and put it in your case anyway. So I kind of understand why Glock did that, but it's just something I noted. Now this next part really irks me. In the past, whenever you bought a Glock, Gen 4 or Gen 5, you got 4 back straps. And with those 4 back straps, you also got this cool little clip that held onto them to keep them organized. And this clip doubled as your punch. And then it also holds your spare pin, because there's a different size pin that you need to use when you have a back strap versus not a back strap. And now in the box, they include a baggie and only 2 back straps. They still include the tool and the extra pin, but this just looks so much cheaper and so much less refined than this. And not only that, but with the Glock 47 specifically, both of the back straps are beaver tail only back straps. They didn't include the back straps that don't have a beaver tail. And to me, that's really worrisome, because the most important thing with any handgun that is gonna separate the difference between you being really proficient with the gun and kind of sucking with the gun is gonna be the grip and how well you can hang on to the gun and how well your hand wraps around so you get the support and mitigate recoil. And back straps do make a huge difference in getting that proper grip. And so the fact that they're skimping on 2 back straps kind of worries me. Now, thankfully, they're not too expensive. You could actually buy this entire set for different types of Glocks, you know, whether they're FDE or gray or black. And it's only about $16 for this whole set. And that's the tool and everything. So it's not the biggest deal, but it does cheapen it quite a bit. Now, this next one that they didn't include is a little bit more worrisome. So the MOS lineup is called MOS for modular optic systems. And traditionally with the Gen 4s, you got a pack that had the screws, it had the tool, and it had 4 different optics plates, because they didn't know which optic that you might run on the gun. Now they're only including 1 optic plate, which I understand, but I don't understand at the same time. The one that they're including is for the Trijicon RMR. And thankfully there's a lot of optics now that are cheaper than the RMR that will fit the RMR footprint. So they're probably looking at that being like, wait, people are probably not gonna use these other 3 plates, let's leave them out. But to me, that cheapens the brand even more, because now if you were gonna run another optic that didn't use the RMR plate, you're gonna have to go buy an optic plate. And so you're either gonna have to go buy aftermarket plates, which are usually $50 to $80, depending on where you get them and who makes them. Or if you wanted to go buy the OEM plates, you can only buy them as a set of 4 and they cost $50. And so to me, the backstrap issue and the plates on the MOS is really annoying me, because if you did want all of those and you wanted to go out and buy them, you're gonna have to spend at least $80-ish to have all those things. And in my humble opinion, it wouldn't matter if Glock was doing this or another brand, but I feel like if a company is going to start cheapening their product and without passing the savings on to the consumer, then it's time that we look at other alternatives. Now, before we get into the alternatives, I did want to do like a cost breakdown, as if, let's pretend you're in the market for a Glock optic ready type gun and you want to set it up for concealed carry. You know, there's more to it than just buying a gun, you know, like sometimes you might want to get the optic, but then if you get the optic, you're gonna have to buy the sights and all of those things. So let's look at the cost breakdown of OEM Glock, and then I'm gonna show you the alternatives. So first, let's start with the Glock MOS. It doesn't matter if it's which MOS version it is, as long as it's not like the 43X MOS, because that's in a different class. But basically all of your MOS guns are about $620. Now, like I said, they're only gonna include 1 optic plate, but thankfully nowadays, there is an optic, the HoloSun SCS, which I have on here, which allows you to mount the red dot directly to the slide without the use of an optic plate. I actually really dig this, but it's the only optic that works and it's been really well, but we'll talk about that in a future video. That's beside the point on that. I just wanted to show you that real quick. So you pick up a Glock MOS and you're like, all right, cool. I want to set this up for concealed carry with a red dot. What do I need to pick up? Now that it only includes one optic plate, which is the RMR plate, you're either stuck picking up a 507C or a Holosun 407C. I'm just going to go with the 507C for price purposes today. So you spend $620 on the gun, you spend $320 on a 507C. We're now at $940. But there's one other thing that you need if you want to carry this, and that's going to be suppressor height sights, because for some reason Glock has never included any type of co-witness style sights for their MOS guns, and that's going to be about another $100. And so when you're all said and done to set your gun up for carry, we're not even talking about the light or the trigger or any grip textures or anything, but just to simply get sights, a red dot, and an MOS, you're looking at a total of $1,040. Now, I wanted to set that up so that I can show you these alternatives. Now, I'm all about carrying an OEM Glock. Like I said earlier in this video, the Glock grip and everything works for me very well. I've never believed in Glock perfection. I've always believed that Glock is the best blank canvas for customizing the gun and making it what you want and what works best for you. Because of the simplicity of the design, the aftermarket community has gone crazy with these. And so this is my previous carry gun. This is a Glock 19X that I had customized back in 2020. As of recently, I now have the Radian ramjet compensator on it. I really enjoy these. And then recently I got this new trigger called a Nelson Precision trigger. It's actually been a really good trigger. But this was my daily carry for a long time. Before we get into this next alternative, we need to recognize that none of these alternatives would exist if Glock never came about. You know what I mean? Because all of these next alternatives are going to be based on the Glock platform. They're going to use Glock internals, Glock slides, and things of that nature. That has proven to be just a really reliable platform because it has the fewest moving parts of almost any other semi-automatic handgun that I've tested. If you know of one that has fewer that's just as reliable and just as modern, let me know in the comments. So they really did set a precedence, and they set a bar that needed to be beat. And unfortunately, it seems that Glock has gotten really complacent in their past successes, and they're not really innovating anymore. Other companies are. Back in 2021, I asked John Lovell if I could review his War Poet, and he said, absolutely, I don't care what you say about it, be as honest and as upfront about what you think as possible. And I did in my video from 2021, and I still carry this to this day. I haven't changed my carry gun because I haven't really found another gun that is as good as this. In fact, as of recently, I picked up 2 additional MR920s. I was at SHOT Show and I was at the Shadow Systems booth and I saw this one that has like a Damascus style slide on it. It's not real Damascus, but it just looks like it. And then I saw this one that comes with a peanut butter Holosun 507C. This is like a Cabela's or a Bass Pro Shop exclusive. You can only get this peanut butter 507C with the peanut butter gun. So going back to the Glock, we were at what, $1,040, and all we added was a red dot and some sights. Now these guns are miles ahead of the OEM Glock in quite a few different ways. Number one, it has a far superior optics mounting system. Not only is it modular optics, but you don't have to use Loctite, and it doesn't use a plate system. Instead, it uses spacers. So as you can see right here, the optic is mounted directly to the slide, and right behind the optic is a spacer. There are, I forget how many spacers are included, but enough to fit any optic that you want. But here's the coolest part. So the reason you don't have to use Loctite is you see this 2 screws that go in right here. Well, if we flip this over, those 2 screws come down to this point here and down to this point here. So the reason that this is even possible to begin with is because Shadow Systems redesigned the plunger, the extractor plunger here. Usually this extractor plunger comes out the rear, but in order to make this where they could put the screws all the way through, you have to remove the red dot to remove the extractor plunger. The other thing that this comes with is it already comes with co-witness sights, and the co-witness sights are blacked out in the rear, and you have a green yellowish front sight, so you can differentiate between the red dot and the yellow front sight. In addition to that, the grip texture and the grip angle are far superior than OEM Glock. You actually got a ledge for your thumb there, so when you're pressed out, you can mitigate recoil. The texture is just far better. The backstrap system, I believe it has 4 different little backstraps, but they actually do a lot more than the Glock backstraps. So you could actually change this from like a Glock grip angle and go to like a 1911 style grip angle. It also includes a far superior trigger to the Glock, It also includes a mag well, and it includes a double undercut, which will reduce Glock knuckle. If you don't know what that is, it basically on OEM Glocks, because of the way that the trigger guard is molded, a lot of times you'll get Glock knuckle, which is a callus on the knuckle that goes directly under the trigger guard. And with these, it's just much more comfortable. But the best part about this is it's not much more expensive than buying a Glock MOS in the setup that we had before. So this was about $1,040. You're still gonna have the OEM trigger, you're still gonna have the grip texture that comes with the gun, you're still gonna have Glock knuckle, no magwell and all that. Well, this one is only like $11.97, something like that. So it's only like 150 bucks more, and you get so much more for the money. But the most impressive part about this gun versus a Glock is I've always been really good at shooting Glocks, but I am far superior at shooting this out of the box, not modified, than I am for shooting these guys. Now, there is a downside to Shadow System. They include PMags for their magazines. And personally for me, I don't feel safe carrying aftermarket mags for self-defense. I'll use them at the range all day long. So you're gonna need to buy 2 magazines at least that are OEM Glock. They function perfectly, but if you're a stickler like me, you're gonna have to go spend 50 bucks and get 2 OEM magazines at least, so you can carry like a setup like this, where you have one here and then a backup, you're good to go. That's how I like to carry, so that's why I say buy at least 2. And so if you add 2 magazines, you're looking at like $1,250. So for an additional $200, you get a ton more than you get with OEM Glock. Now, the cool thing is recently Shadow Systems came out with their Foundation series. Now, I don't personally have a Foundation series, but my buddy does. And the only difference in the Foundation series versus any of their others is the slide is a little bit different, the barrel's not threaded, and there's no magwell. But they sell all that stuff on their website for a really good price. What I mean by that is I think their magwells are only like 20 bucks, but everything else that comes with an MR20, like the sights, the beautiful grip texture, the trigger, the undercut, all that stuff is already included with those. And those guns are only $60 more than a Glock MOS. All you need for that gun is any optic of your choice, but we'll use 507 CX2 as our standard. So you add $320 to that, you're looking at about $1,100. Then you're gonna need, some OEM mags, let's just say 2 OEM mags. You're looking at $1,150 for that. And that brings you to only $10 more for an OEM Glock, but you'll have a true modular optics system with co-witness sights, better grip, better trigger, all of those fancy fixings. So in my opinion, if you're on like a pretty good budget, but you wanna get like an optics ready gun to get set up and go, that's a really good option to choose. But there are more affordable options that work pretty darn well. And that would be something like the PSA Dagger. Now, when this gun first came out, they had one little problem with them where the pin that holds the trigger in would want to walk out. I never experienced that problem, but some people did. And I have probably more rounds through this than I do the Shadow Systems, because when these first came out, there was one that was being passed around different YouTubers. And I think it ended up with like tens of thousands of rounds through it. But when I got it, it already had 6,000 rounds. Palmetto State Armory sent me about 1,000 rounds of ammo, put 1,000 rounds through theirs, I put 1,000 rounds through mine, and this gun has held up really well. Now, when these first got introduced, a basic one would cost you $299. Now on their site, you can get optic ready ones that have suppressor height sights already on them that are cut for like a 507C. They're not modular optic, they are cut specifically for the red dot, but that's good, it's a direct mount. You can get those for about $380 to $400, and all you need to do is buy a red dot. So let's say 400, we go spend $320 on a 507C. Now you're at $720 for a gun that's ready to go. Now, unfortunately, with the PSA daggers, they do only include PMags. So if you want to carry it and get some OEM mags, you're gonna have to spend 50 bucks or so on at least 2 OEM mags. But these offer a lot of the same benefits that the frame does for the Shadow Systems. No, they're not quite as good, but then again, they're a lot cheaper. So the grip on this is phenomenal. I love the ergos of it. It feels amazing. It doesn't have a double undercut, but the single undercut is perfect. You don't get Glock knuckle from it. They also did a really good job at scalloping out this magazine release, and I'm able to shoot this really, really well. But there is something that's a little bit I'm not gonna say better, but there is a really good competitor to the PSA dagger, but it involves using PSA dagger parts. So last October, I made a video about this gun right here that I literally pieced together for less than $500, including the red dot, but not including this aftermarket trigger. But you know, with an OEM trigger, you could put this together for like 500 bucks or so. Make sure you check the part. This is a complete slide from Palmetto State Armory that came with suppressor height sights, came with a threaded barrel, it came with a recoil spring, and it came with the Holosun 507C X2, and this only cost me at the time $400. Now that I believe they're a little like 20 bucks more or something like that, but they do throw them on sale a lot. So you take that, and then I got this guy right here called the SCT Manufacturing 100% Glock frame. In that video, I talked about how this frame kind of feels funky at first, like it almost feels blocky, but when you shoot it, it's like your hands melt into this grip and you can really reduce recoil. Long story longer, these are $420. These frames are like, right now, I think 39 bucks. And you do have to go through a background check and all that stuff, but 39 bucks. Get a $50 parts kit. You now have a complete optic, co-witnessed, really good grip texture handgun with a threaded barrel that you can shoot very well, and you can also conceal carry with it. And to me, that makes all the difference. Yeah, you will have to go buy a couple of magazines if you want OEM, so $550. You could have a completely decked out custom Glock 19 clone for a lot less than the MOS. But if I had to rank any of these in any particular order, this is where my head's at. Although I love the PSA daggers, I'm just not gonna carry it. Mine has shot phenomenally well, but I'm just much better personally with the MR920s than I am with this. And this has been 100% reliable. I've had maybe one malfunction with an aftermarket mag, and that's it, and thousands of rounds with this. Whoops. It just keeps falling out. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to shoot that. These cutouts right here on this mag, they really suck. This one I have a couple thousand through it and I've had zero malfunctions. Knowing what I know now about all of these different guns, if I could only afford to buy one of these, which one would I buy? If money was kind of tight, I would choose the MR920 Foundation. I'd go pick up a Holosun 507C or even the 407Cs, which are a little bit cheaper. Get me a couple of OEM mags and I would carry that. If my budget was even tighter, I'd 100% go with this guy. I mean, I can shoot the crap out of this and I've had zero malfunctions with it. It is almost perfect in my humble opinion, but that's just me. Everybody's hands are different. But going back to what I was talking about earlier in the video, this whole thing about, I've been noticing, you know, over the past 2 years at least, where products are getting cheaper has really been annoying me. And thankfully, companies like this and companies like this trying to bring more value and more features in the products that they're offering without increasing the price. And I think that there's something to be said about that. And the good news about both of these is all of this is American made. None of this stuff's made overseas. But I would love to know what your thoughts are. Are you bummed out that Glock is including less in the box? Do you think that's enough of a reason to stop buying Glocks and to maybe go for a Glock alternative? Especially if you find yourself being the kind of person that's like me, that is just most proficient with a Glock style handgun. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, all right, cool, man, I get it. There's Glock clones that are better than Glock. That's really fine and dandy, but dude, I don't like Glocks. I don't like Glock platform. I don't like things that are better than Glock that aren't even a Glock. Well, if that's you, check out this video right here where I go through my top 5 favorite Glock alternatives that aren't based on the Glock platform. But until next time, guys, I love you and you guys stay sexy.